Hello and welcome to another Office Hours capsule. That's right, capsule. Little segment of our Office Hours live stream that we do on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, which is, I think, 4 or 5 p.m. Pacific. Yeah, 5 p.m. Pacific, live at twitch.tv/TheAstroPub and youtube.com/TheAstroPub live. Come join us live and join chat here, talking about the latest news and updates. We do ISC we look at some stuff from the dev trackers. We do lots of stuff like that, the latest lore updates. So come join us live at those locations. And if you're watching this and if you've been enjoying these monthly report videos that we're doing, this is obviously going to be a monthly report, please do make sure you're liking the video and subscribing for more content as it is. But yeah, say hi, chat. Anywho, this is going to be the July monthly report for Star Citizen. July 2023 monthly report for Star Citizen. And before we get started, I do want to kind of put some caveats out there. This is not a summary. I do summarize it towards the end. It's just a kind of a brief overview of what I've read. But the purpose of this is to be effectively the audiobook form of the monthly reports. I'm going to read you everything word for word that's on the monthly report and then interject with some experience. So some of the stuff, I've been doing this for over 2 years now. And I can tell you like what they've talked about in the past to give you some context as to what everything's been talked about. So I'll give some interjection here and there. But this is not short, so make sure that you understand that. Nothing wrong with summaries, but I feel like if you really want to get all of the information in, if you really are like, hey, I want to know about, this aspect of Star Citizen, this aspect of Star Citizen, you really need to kind of read all of the, read everything. So please do read if you have a chance to. I know you don't always have a chance to, though, which is why I do these sorts of videos. With that being said, let's get into the July 2023 monthly report for Star Citizen. All right, AI tech. Last month, AI tech finalized work to allow NPCs to transition between EVA and environments with gravity. This required an update to the usables code, including exposing it to enter and exit location information. Now NPCs can enter and exit ships through airlocks or hatches by vaulting over ledges. The team also implemented simple behaviors and assignments for entering and exiting ships, which compute a path to a location and utilize the most suitable usable to finish the transition. The transition. So it's important to note that this is technology that they've developed. This doesn't mean it's done. This does not mean that we're going to see 320. We're going to have NPCs, disembark from their ship and board. No, this is probably using the new AI tech, which was developed for Squadron 42, which is still not in Star Citizen yet. And this is tech, so it's not, animations aren't finished. It's probably jank. You saw the ISC 2 weeks ago with the hole munching gameplay, probably as jank as that. But it's working. The AI are able to move from one place to another through EVA and get into to a place and do those things. That's done. But now they have to evolve it. They have to give it some better animations. They got to kind of work it out. So that's cool. It can take a long time for that to happen, or it could take a short time. And again, none of this matters until the AI tech is ported over to Star Citizen from Squad 42, which may take some time. Keep that in context. On the navigation system side, AI tech upgraded navigation links to connect 2 volumes from different zones, which is needed for moving platforms. The previous implementation only allowed for links between parent and child zones rather than between 2 unrelated zones. Further optimizations and improvements were made for navigation mesh raycasts too. It's important to note this is also for Squadron 42, so that may also be references to Squadron 42 for moving platforms. AI tech also picked up the ongoing work on Boids, which is birds and fish. They're currently working on 2D Boids agents, such as rodents, that will move across terrain within the confines of a navigation mesh. They're also adding constraints to avoid navigation mesh edges to ensure Boids stay inside navigable areas. Next, they'll look into Boids agents playing animations while moving or idling. That's the first kind of thing. I don't know if you'll be able to shoot them or interact with them. They're just kind of running around for right now. The subsumption editor received numerous improvements, including a variable type editor, the ability to copy-paste states while editing a master graph, improved views on how master graph transitions are presented, and improved activity view for available subcategories and functions, and validation panel that presents errors and warning when loading and saving files. Various features and AI systems received improvements too. For the usable group coordinator, designers can now specify that a group of NPCs should synchronize when positioning from one group of usables to another. Usables is anything an AI can pick up and interact with. Guns, knives, snow globes, doesn't matter. Whatever they can deal with. Like even ships are considered usables to AI. So don't quote me on that one. I don't know 100%, but I'm pretty sure that's the way it works. For NPCs pushing trolleys, the team optimized PID controller and adjusted the default parameters to stabilize quicker after turning on the path. Why must you flirt with disaster? Did you not watch Oppenheimer? How bad it is to play with fire like that. You're giving weapons of mass destruction to AI. I will never not say this is a just terrible, terrible idea, CIG. Never. For NPC perception of audio stimuli, AI tech began using new functionality exposed by the audio team, which will utilize the room system to understand if an audio event should be received. Okay, that's something they've been working on in the past, where the audio team is working on sound propagation, like where the sound's going, and now the AI can react to sounds depending on where they are, which is pretty cool. Animation. Last month, the animation team focused on improving visual results for reloads and takedowns. They also worked on basic idles for weapons and knives, which are planned for release in Alpha 320. Hey, we get to like a little idle with our guns and knives and stuff like that. That's pretty cool. Right now, they already have kind of third-person animation for like your mobiGlas if you're standing still for too long, so. They're currently making improvements to player-prone animations and adding an increased number of player interactions to improve immersion in specific environments. So for those of you who don't know, they are taking the EVA from the next EVA system, the new EVA system. They're taking that and adding that to the player prone status, so it becomes a little bit more, instead of just toggle once, you roll on your back, toggle on the other side, you roll on your front. They're having more nuanced system for the animation for that, so kind of changing how the movement system works. On the facial side, they continue to support new incoming lines for PU pilots and combatants. Very cool. Art characters. In July, the character art team continued working on outfits for the Headhunters and Dusters gangs. Headhunters is a Pyro gang, Dusters is a Stanton gang. Alongside this, the character concept art team explored ideas for additional Headhunters outfits and prepared handoff sheets for IAE and Luminalia content. Okay. Art ships. In the UK, the RSI Polaris began its white box phase with a thorough breakdown of content required. It's finally in white box. That's a good sign. The team then imported the concept mesh and completed the basic entity setup. A rough interior white box was completed, and several other issues with concept were resolved. It's good. It's good. Now, it can still be a while because this entering white box is different from leaving white box, but it's a good status. We'll probably see more as the coming months about it being worked on. Hopefully, we'll see some hints that I'll be exiting white box by the end of this year, because it's still 6 months from now. So, and as of yet unannounced ship continue its LOD 0 pass. LOD 0 is the pass it needs right before final art, and final art is the stage it needs to go before it's released. So this is like the second to last step. With a majority of tasks completed and a review scheduled, the team is currently focused on adding tertiary details to the interior and exterior, as well as finishing the lighting for each phase. It's important to also point out, because people always say, wait, so that unannounced ship, could that be insert concept ship here? Or no. If it's unannounced, it means it's unannounced. It means CIG has not talked about it. It could be a variant or a brand new ship. In this case, it says unannounced ship. Usually they'll say unannounced variant of a ship. So this means this is a brand new ship that we don't know about. So keep that in mind. Crusader A1 Spirit progressed through final art with a handful of LODs remaining for its interior and exterior damage. So it's pretty much done. That, for people wondering like, hey, what's going on? The A1 is done. That's the reason why it's coming out in 320.1 or whatever. Work also continued on the C1 Spirit cargo variant, with the main differences being the minor exterior changes and the cargo room, the latter of which is currently progressing through Greybox with the most of its core forms refined. Now, there's a lot of question as to why they chose to do the A1 first rather than the C1. People are saying, oh, maybe it's the tractor beams. We don't know. But we do know that the A1 has always been the one that they've been working on first. So the A1 was always going to be finished first, but the C1 should be finished before the end of the year. If it's in gray box in July, whatever is the last patch of the year should have the C1. So, barring unforeseen incidents. But work on a new ship variant continued, with dashboard and cockpit receiving attention. The design team also resolved the placement of physicalized components, ready for art team to add at a later date. Another unannounced variant continued through its gray box phase 2. Okay. In the US, the Temporal Storm approached the end of its production. We have built all damage meshes, projected all UV2s, generated most LODs, and are now just polishing on various parts of the vehicle. Lighting is getting another pass, and we are working with systems design to make most of them procedural, so they will respond with player interaction. Ship Art's team. Ship Art also worked alongside Tech Art to solve visual issues with the treads. So they said that the storm's probably going to be coming out at the same time the C2 is, would be my guess. Elsewhere, tasks were started for an all-new vehicle. The team began by breaking apart the concept and putting together an in-game preview while planning to work out the work required for the base and its variants. The current plan is to white box all the variants at the same time and then select which versions will move to the gray box first. Kind of like what they did with the Spirit. So that's a brand new vehicle. My guess is that vehicle will be sold at CitizenCon. If they're currently working on concepts for it. It hasn't been released yet or sold yet, and it's probably going to be a small ship, so we may actually see, this might be the ship that ends up in like the spring of next year releasing, sort of thing, from CitizenCon. So they continue to do that. 2 new variants went through the LOD 0 phase and are approaching content complete. 2 new variants, that's a lot of ships. There's a lot of stuff coming out. CIG, for a year that's been pretty light on ships, we're about to get a lot of new ships and variants. The team also progressed through LOD 0 of the Apoa Santokyai, filling out item housing and doing heavy paneling work on the exterior. They also came to a solution for the dashboard, which still requires polish but delivers a unique aesthetic for interaction. They currently work with system design to get the ship's behaviors to trigger correctly. Very good. All right. LOD 0 again, the stage before final art, which the Santokyai may take a little bit longer because it's a new unique ship, but these 2 new variants plus the C1 probably come out before the end of the year based off of this. Finally, for the ships, the Origin X1 entered the gray box stage. It just now entered gray box? I'm going to throw something, CIG. There's no excuse. No excuse. The X1 should have been done years ago. What are you doing? Oh. While waiting on white box review, the team are working to solve various aesthetic issues while ensuring the overall ship makes mechanical sense. They're also exploring new tools to help generate extremely clean automotive-style geometry to maintain the required Origin feel. Audio. July saw the audio team progressing with tasks for Pyro, including implementing imperative sounds. They also discussed how they can iterate existing work with Squadron 42. Improvements were made to the flight experience, including updated vibration tech and impacts. Sound effects were also designed and implemented for the upcoming spaceship releases. Ooh. The community team kicked off July by launching Foundation Festival 2953, a month-long celebration of the community with a free flight, referral bonus, video tutorial contest hosted on Community Hub, and an organization spotlight gallery. Furthermore, with a focus on helping new recruits, the team posted updates to the new player guide, implementing a new player chat on Spectrum, curated media on the Welcome Hub, and encouraged veteran players to support new recruits by offering rewards for using the guide system. Later in the month, the community supported the announcement of Turbulent joining CIG. The team also prepared an upcoming return to CitizenCon, the in-person celebration of all things Star Citizen. They announced a collaboration with Atmo Esports for the event, too. CitizenCon is shaping up to be the most epic one yet, with a cosplay contest, community booths, and now the biggest dogfighting tournament in the verse, Fight or Flight, coming straight from the show floor, or coming straight from store floor as well. We have many more cool surprises in store for you, and we can't wait to see you there, community team. Additionally, the team supported various community-driven in-game events, including the Grey Cat Social and a military-style parade organized by the French community. Hey, they did a Bastille day one. That's cool. They also met passionate players and the verse, returning to the beautiful city of Paris for Bar Citizen and attending Virtual Bar Citizen. Virtual Bar Citizen is fantastic. It's often put on by the Soul Citizens, so go check them out. Lastly, community assisted with the introduction of the brand new Mission Spotlight series and launched a screenshot contest to reward the best images from players to take on the Arlington bounty missions. All right. Engine. This is where I go and explain that I am not an engineer. I am not a Starfleet engineer. I cannot turn rocks into replicators. I am not a Covenant engineer. I cannot disassemble and assemble like electric cars from rote memory. I am not an engine seer. I do not know the canticles of the Omnissiah. I am but me. I am not a trained expert when it comes to the engine. Drink some water. So, if you are any of those things or other, and you, excuse me, and you can understand what's going on, please let me know in the comments down below. It helps me out a lot. Some of these things I will do my best to try to explain them, but I will still read as best as I can. Now I'm getting hiccups. The core engine team progressed with the development of StarBuild, the new in-house code build system that replaced the WAF. Last month, they fixed issues and implemented improvements based on feedback from wider dev use. For Memory Play 2.0, the team introduced virtual memory areas as a concept to the memory allocation systems, which will better track OS committed memory and provide an improved visuals for sub-allocations. Progress was then made on removing the remaining map and write discard calls in the renderer in preparation for the new Vulkan backend. They also reworked the game launcher code structure to reduce code duplications and enable Linux-based headless clients. Headless clients? Which will help with automatic testing. Core Engine also worked alongside the physics and vehicle teams in support of the MISC Hull C, ensuring it works correctly and fixing bugs with the ship's unique systems. Additionally, they fixed further fallout from the last integration and made various other bug fixes and optimizations. The physics team continued helping the game teams fix various physics-related bugs in the game code. They also updated the new cloth system and Maelstrom, and began improving the active and animated ragdolls. The cloth system is the one that they showed off in 2019 CitizenCon. It's been actively getting a lot of updates, and Maelstrom is the new damage system or physics-based damage system that they've created. People have talked a little bit about the Maelstrom. Everything's added with Maelstrom now. So, the Entity System team primarily supported various technical investigation or initiatives, including Rastar and the Resource Network. This involved exploring ways to create and limit generated locations to provide a rich experience without negatively impacting performance. They also supported the server meshing team by adding necessary improvements and fixes. Okay, so that's the first time we've seen them mention server meshing since they talked about how some of the server meshing team has been folded into the engine team for working. That doesn't necessarily mean good or bad things, it's just they're working on it. Finally, they provided bug fixes for the recently enabled async editor loading and are currently adding more safety checks for correct entity access. All right. Features, characters, and weapons. July saw the feature team experimenting with skill progression, which involves player performing specific in-game actions to make them better at similar activities. For example, building up strength will allow characters to carry heavier objects with fewer penalties, while performing takedowns will open access to quicker and quieter action sets. So that's the skill system they talked about that they developed for Squadron 42. It looks like they're starting to port it over to Star Citizen. For player traversal, the team began implementing a sliding mechanic. If a player tries to crouch while sprinting, they will perform a short slide before entering a crouch stance. The speed of the slide is determined by starting speed of the player, and the distance may depend on factors such as the roughness or angle of the terrain. The player will automatically stop when reaching an obstacle, as the prime use case for this feature is it will allow players to slide into cover. That sounds like they're working on the traversal system. The traversal system they showed off at Squad 42 from last CitizenCon. They mentioned this in the past as well, and the sliding system has been something they've been trying to do for years. They did it initially, implemented it back in like 2014, 2015, and it just never really worked properly. And then they decided to switch it over to mostly Squadron 42 stuff, and then worked on it, and then had to scrap it. So this sounds like a new system. No guarantee that it's fully going to be added in, but this is the first time we've seen it return back to mentions of it. So I wouldn't expect this to be tribes. We're not seeing that level of sliding, but some slide into cover kind of stuff, which makes it interesting. Features, gameplay. Gameplay features continued their work on the new vehicle tractor beam, which will also bring improvements to the existing tractor beams. July's tasks included the first iterative test for core balancing and the UI. So it looks like it's done. They're just working on the UI and making sure like the tractor beams work in the right ways. Additionally, the team progressed with the resource network, which includes features like engineering gameplay and life support. Someone in chat was immediately like, hey, we haven't heard anything about resource management. Here's it mentioned in resource gameplay. It was also mentioned in the engine gameplay, I believe, as well. So another one of those. They also worked on several prototypes for Salvage's munching gameplay and are currently discussing the best fitting technical solution with all of the dependent teams. ISC 2 weeks ago talked about that. Finally, they made improvements to mining for Alpha 320 based on community feedback, including updates to stability and predictability when mining. Big thank you to the very valuable feedback that was provided. Big shout out to our helpful community. There we go. Give feedback on Spectrum and through... I want to say incident issue, but I can't remember the name of it. The reporting said issue council. Thank you, chat, for issue council. I always forget the name of it. Features mission. Last month, mission features embedded QA testers supported the development of ship trespass by giving the feature rigorous destructive testing. They broke it. Okay. They hit it with a chair. The QA came in with a steel chair, is what you're trying to tell us there, features team. The retrieve consignment missions passed final review and were currently being polished and rebalanced. Alongside this, the current underground facilities were replaced with Rastar to fix a variety of issues and make iterating on them easier. Okay. Progress was also made on the new global event, Blockade Runner. A working prototype was shown to the game directors who approved this movement to development. For those of you who don't know, Blockade Runner is the replacement for the Ninetales Lockdown. Ninetales Lockdown has been entirely scrapped and removed. And I saw a lot of people when I mentioned that like Xenothreat and Siege of Orison were super popular and people hate them now because they were used during testing for 3.18 debacle. So I was like, yeah, I figured that was the case. But like, I love Ninetales Lockdown. If it was Ninetales Lockdown they were using for testing in 3.18, you would all hate it as well. Trust me, it was the least popular one for a reason. And so it's been replaced with the Blockade Runner, which is a good sign. The initial planning for cargo missions was completed with all dependencies identified. The team are now looking deeper into the reputation system to improve the wider delivery and hauling mission gameplay loop. Steal and recover cargo missions were also prototyped and shown to the directors and are making good progress. These will see players either recover cargo from disabled ships or disable and board ships before securing their cargo. How do you disable, though? Probably soft death. Finally, codework began for Reputation. Progression within Reputation scopes will give players discounts on various purchases, including items, refueling, and repair. Mission features also picked up the reputation-based hostility system, which will see NPC orgs more willing to attack those who have negative reputation with them, providing benefits to those with positive standing, which they kind of talked about with the roadmap update, so it all looks good. Graphics, VFX programming, and planet tech. Several new features were added to the global illumination system last month, including the initial implementation of temporal smoothing for screen space probes, which will produce more stable results at a lower cost. G-buffer support was also added to the environment probes to provide a cheap scene representation for secondary light bounces. This is the sneaky second engineering that I've always been like, this is fine, and then I get through it and I'm like, I don't understand half of these things. Lighting, I guess. In addition, new debug modes were added alongside a new mechanism to gather lights for the GI system. It's a lot more complicated than just lighting, but lighting is complicated. A basic implementation of temporal super resolution was completed, which will continue to receive fixes and improvements as it's integrated into the graphics engine. AMD's memory allocation API was integrated with the Vulkan backend, improving the system's stability, streaming speeds, and buffer read times. A reduction in streaming/rendering dependencies has improved performance, and new parameters will allow the devs to modify the render graph's shader storage and ownership state. These features were added alongside ongoing bug fixes to visual regression states with a focus on render-to-texture system. As part of ongoing UI refinements and unifications, the silhouette/highlight feature is currently being improved with a softer and brighter outer glow. The minimap also received a ping effect, which will blink around objects for improved in-game navigation. Minimap is the new thing that they've been porting over from Squadron 42 that will give you kind of a local area of what you're looking at when you're flying around it or moving around it. So, the feature team is working on bringing the new unified water shader into the game, adding details such as puddles that splash on impact and fixing collision detection issues on larger water volumes. A new system to manage water simulations is also in progress that will activate regions upon collision, deactivate them when they have settled, and constantly monitor and protect performance by limiting active stimulations. Meanwhile, a new hash map system for allocating water buffer regions and large surface area friendly water volumes is actively being worked on, so the new unified water buffer system can be enabled by default. Effectively, they're kind of they're entirely reworking how water works in Star Citizen, so it should look better based off of a lot of this stuff. The World Builder system saw a variety of improvements last month, including major refactor to the high-level logic that runs background jobs, which should significantly reduce latency, avoid stalls, and simplify the code. In addition, planet ocean patches no longer render in duplicates, and the planet streaming system was fixed for Gen 12. The VFX programming team fixed issues impacting damage maps. Attached objects now correctly update their damage maps, and an issue causing unexpected data to appear in snapshots is being investigated. For VFX-specific work, an issue preventing group child effects from spawning correctly was addressed, and the bugs on separator tags and external referencing were fixed. In-game branding. Last month, in-game branding continued building various assets for an upcoming event and worked alongside locations on navigational signage for New Babbage. That might be for the Blockade Runner. That could also be another one. It could also be like CitizenCon or IAE. That probably is IAE in terms of the event, because that's considered an event. They also began work on underground facilities, working closely with concept and sandbox teams on different mock-ups for the commercial lobbies. That's the new UGFs, not the new UGFs, not the new UGFs that are coming out soon. complicated. Watch ISC for that whole discussion. Progress was made on the final touch-ups for Pyro 2. Final touch-ups. It sounds like they're kind of finishing up Pyro in a lot of ways. So, Interactables. July saw the Interactables team close out and polish work on Pyro's consumables and shop and prop content. They also created content for Subscriber Flare. We getting trash cans for Subscriber Flare? Yes, finally I can be the trash man. Watch these be Subscriber Flare, different colored trash cans. Oh, I'll laugh if that actually happens. Lighting. The lighting team polished and cleaned up various locations around Pyro and worked on the system's gas clouds. Back in Stanton, they progressed with tasks for Crusader's new platforms. Locations EU. The locations team continued working on Pyro's rundown stations, with a focus on completing polished tasks. So, this confused some people on my Discord. For those of you who don't know, there are two types of stations in Pyro. There's the rundown stations, which are the stations that we were like the outlaw stations, which are effectively the stations we have now in Stanton, for like the L stations or the stations around planets, but in Pyro. So they're just trashed versions of those. And then there's Ruin Station, which is more like Lorville or Olisar or Area 18 or New Babbage. It's the landing zone for Pyro, but it's a space station instead of a landing zone. But it's that scale and that size. If you look at the, I want to say they showed off at CitizenCon last year. They showed off a little bit of it. So that's the two difference. So there are stations in Pyro. They're just owned by pirates, or gangs. Improvements were also made to... Did I get through? No, I haven't finished yet. They also improved signage around New Babbage, improved and bug fixed the new Crusader platforms, and worked with a mission feature team on mission features on new content. The Sandbox team progressed with Outpost for Pyro and continued their extensive work on the updated underground facilities. Improvements were also made to Pyro's planets, and new technology for clouds was looked into. Cool. Someone tried to enhance this. Is this the new resource system? No, it's just a placeholder system. Locations, Montreal. In July, the Montreal's location team progressed with additional derelict settlements, which passed Greybox before moving to the final phase. Progress was made on underground facilities, too. Once the above content is delivered, the team will return to ongoing building interior mandate. So the building interiors aren't built yet. They're working on UGFs. So it looks like the UGFs, the new UGFs, the ones that are going to not replace the UGFs now, but work alongside them, the one with lobbies and stuff like that. Those are being focused on right now by Montreal, and then once they get that done, they'll be working on the building interiors. That's the dynamic building interiors for buildings and landing zones and such. So I think this is the lobby, or at least like a kind of, you can see back here a little bit of the lobby. So narrative. Last month, narrative continued syncing with the various design teams to push development on Pyro, specifically focused on mission content, local mission providers, establishing the tone and voice of how missions should be presented, and examining the overall mission system will change when the new system is added. To answer that last one, it's led to some interesting discussions about missions that cross over from Stanton to Pyro and vice versa. Narrative team. Elsewhere, the team supported the NISC Hull C by implementing the latest version of the air traffic control behavior, which will allow players to request a landing spot to load and offload their cargo. This has also led to resurrecting work on the overarching ATC behavior, with some potentially exciting updates that will be discussed in the near future. I'd like to keep this very tame because CIG, I remember talking to Dave Haddock, and Dave Haddock was super interested in like the new player experience, saying like, we gotta kind of mesh this all with like the universe, and it felt very much like he was talking about the system as it would be, how do you present new players the universe? And in the end, they threw a freaking a block of text at you to read to understand the universe. So I wouldn't go far with the ATC right now. This may just be narrative talking about exciting effects that will eventually get shit-canned and tossed down the road for another time. So keep that in mind. I may be a little bitter about that. The narrative team also is also expanding to include 2 dedicated narrative designers who will bridge the gaps between narrative design and AI. They will look at all NPCs, from mission givers to population characters, and refine their behaviors to make them feel more alive and ultimately establish the tone and flavor of the game's various locations. For example, make the people of Hurston feel distinct from the people of Orison. Very cool. I'm glad it's being done, but I'm sad that it's just now getting done, getting started. On the website, the team released some answers to the community's burning questions about another installment of Lore Makers and published another installment of Galactopedia articles at the end of the month. Online Services Montreal. The Online Services team spent July further refining the new inventory ID feature and addressing issues that came up during the formal QA testing pass. Time was also spent working to plan to refactor several of the backend services to gRPC, as well as modernize them with new features. This is the first time I've seen gRPC. I don't know what that means. Lastly, they researched an easy anti-cheat sanctions and enforcement. R&D. In July, further updates were made to the atmosphere and volumetric cloud rendering. Guided sampling used in the cloud Raymarcher was updated based on the last month's improvements to transmittance profiles. The profiles themselves received additional filtering, stochastic resampling to reduce occasional block artifacts due to profile reuse. Moreover, temporal render mode, currently being developed for atmosphere and volumetric clouds, was switched to a low discrepancy-based sequence of sample offsets that are used to set up arrays for ray marching over time. Based on recent research publications, cloud shadow maps can now be stochastically filtered, which considerably improves performance and render quality. The new temporal render mode will use the stochastic, I can't even say that word, stochastic texture filter by default. UI made improvements to the data heist screen throughout July, which involved working closely with mission features. They also worked on the style variant for screens throughout Pyro. So there's a data heist mission that has been talked about and kicked around for a long time. It's likely going to come out sooner rather than later, but it's not going to come out in 320. It's definitely one of those big ones, though. I believe that's the one that involves you having to steal something from Crusader. So it's effectively the mission from 2019 CitizenCon. Something around that. Something like that, though. Chat is saying the RPC is a remote procedure call used for connecting services in and between data centers. Okay. I don't think I've seen that before in the monthly reports, though. The core technology team improved building blocks runtime performance as the recent addition of new UI assets led to an increase in size and complexity. This involved coding more aggressive solutions for skipping hierarchy selection updates, which led to reduced CPU footprint and significant performance gains. It's good. The team also continued adding new features to bindings and building blocks, including a color picker, pigmentation widget, and stepped lines for the designers. I know that's tempted to be, say, a color picker for pigmentation widget, so people are being like, oh, so we can pick colors for our UI. No, that's for the designers. That's a tool for the designers, so it won't be for players. I hate to crush your dreams like that, but it's not quite there yet. Finally, UI worked alongside graphics to develop a new internal map system to help players navigate the game's complex cities, planets, and capital ships. This will be a real game changer for players, and we're really excited by its progress. It's a pretty big one. That's a big one that they're trying to improve for navigation. It's also going to involve, I think, the ping system as well, the FPS ping system in the future. So. VFX. Last month, the VFX team continued working with the interiors and exteriors of several Pyro locations. The visual style of these locations differs greatly from many Stanton-based areas, which has been a welcome challenge for VFX artists, both technically and artistically. VFX. They also completed their VFX pass on Size 5 bomb and 3 upcoming vehicles. All right. So I wouldn't say it's a very meaty one. It's not a blow you out of the water thing, but I'd say it's a fairly meaty, a solid monthly report. Nothing blowing you out of the water. Some kind of cool updates. Going back through this, UI is getting improvements. There's a lot of talk about the new mini-map that's been worked on. New updates for cloud rendering, which is being researched into. Working on some PES stuff. The narrative team has 2 new designers who are specifically there to create AI, things like AI to make them feel different. So behavior of AI in places like Lorville will be different from Olisar, which is good, kind of good thing. As well as an update to the ATC. Lots of discussion on working on the underground facilities, as well as Pyro outposts and Pyro stations and planets. There's a lot of lighting updates for stuff. Interactables is working on things. In-game branding was working on stuff for CitizenCon and for our not for CitizenCon for IAE. Let's see. Gen 12 and Vulcan integration's been starting. Mission's been working on Ship Trespass, on Blockade Runner. Rastar's improving things, cargo missions, and reputation-based stuff has been worked on too. Gameplay features working on the tractor beam, salvage munching stuff, and improvements to mining. Skill progression has started, as well as player traversal, so allows you for like sliding. Lots of stuff for the engine. Community teams working on community stuff, CitizenCon and such. New audio stuff for ships. We also see a lot of like the Tumbril Storm is being worked on. The A1 is going through final art. The C1 is going through its gray box phase. The X1's in gray box. There's let me count these. 2 new variants with Lot Zero phase, and as chat's pointed out, there's been a leak. I'm not going to go too in depth, but it is a Drake ship, which has been leaked as it's getting variants, and it's probably the one you like, probably the one you want. If you want to look that up, I'm sure there's plenty of other stuff out there for that one. The Centaur Ki is in Lot Zero. The X1's being worked on. Say that again, probably. There's like 3 new ships. A new ship plus several variants is being worked on. Another ship variant is being worked on. And the big one, the Polaris has entered, fully entered white box at this phase, which is good. Good sign. The Headhunters and Dusters are continuing to be worked on. We're seeing animations for takedowns and player prone animations and new lines and facial animations for NPCs. Lots of stuff for AI tech as well. Stuff like transitions between EVA environments and gravity, and being able to move from different zones. So an AI can now wander out of a UGF across a plane and towards Lorville if they wanted to. So all solid stuff, nothing blowing you out of the water, though I do want to know your thoughts down below in the comments. Let me know what stood out to you, or if this all sounds like garbage to you, let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Again, join these wonderful folks on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, twitch.tv/TheAstroPub, youtube.com/TheAstroPub live. And like I say all the time, hope to see you someday in the black.